Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host who might be a pizza. What does that mean? We'll find out. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual literature that I have found in my travels. We are back on another wonderful Poetry Thursday, an opportunity to talk about the great poetry, the fun, the hilarious poetry that exists in the world today. Previously, I've spoken about Shel Silverstein, one of my favorite poets, but I wanted to highlight another poet who writes poetry for children mostly. Shel Silverstein, he wrote for adults too, but Falling Up, Where the Sidewalk Ends, A Light in the Attic, those are books aimed at children mostly. So I wanted to read a specific poem that I found out of a book by Jack Prelutsky. I am talking about A Pizza the Size of the Sun, with drawings by James Stevenson. You have a pizza in the corner. Wonderful book of poetry that I've read before in my youth. I particularly enjoyed his use of alliteration as well as tongue twisters and the fact that some of his poems were just giant puns in and of itself. I do think I tended to prefer Shel Silverstein, though, just because his poems had a certain magic and charm to them that I haven't really found with many other poets. I don't think that's any problem with Jack Prelutsky. He's great. It's just that I would prefer Shel Silverstein over him. And after going through this book again, I'm still kind of there, but I do think that there's a certain a different charm to Jack Prelutsky where he just tries to use as much alliteration and tongue twisting as possible, which makes his poems like a joy to the ears, much like Tato Laviere's Spanglish. How it just sounds interesting when you say it, and it might not make the most sense, but it is still fun to say out loud. Well, history on Jack Prelutsky. He was a Brooklyn poet when he was, interestingly, when he was growing up. His parents, most of his family died in a fire, and he ended up living with an uncle or something like that. And he became a poet later on, and he eventually became the Young Person's Poet Laureate, which is a specific title, which seems like a pretty big deal. I don't know if they have that award anymore or not, but it definitely highlights where Jack Prelutsky is really working in. I also found out that he lives in Seattle, which is not that far away from me. So living in the same state is always cool. So I wanted to talk about one of Jack Prelutsky's poems today from A Pizza the Size of the Sun. I got it from the local library. Don't forget to patronize your local library. It's called When I Am Full of Silence. It definitely has a different tone than the rest of the poems in his book, in that it feels a little more serious, a little more mature than the poems where he's talking about giant rats or eating weird food or making a pizza the size of the sun. It definitely has a more serious tone to it, and that's not why I chose it. It really spoke to me, and I'll explain why later. But I was definitely going to choose Pizza the Size of the Sun before getting to this point. So without further ado, I would like to read to you the poem, do a little analysis afterwards. It's not going to be too deep, since this is a book aimed at children after all, and then we will move on from there. When I am full of silence. When I am full of silence and no one else is near, the voice I keep inside of me is all I want to hear. I settle in my secret place, contented and alone, and I think no other thoughts except the thoughts that are my own. When I am full of silence, I do not care to play, to run and jump and fuss about the way I do all day. The pictures painted in my mind are all I need to see when I am full of silence, when I am truly me. Yeah, so that was When I Am Full of Silence by Jack Prelutsky, a high-quality poem, simply because, for one, as I mentioned before, it speaks to me, just because I was a very I guess I'd say a very lonely child. Like growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends. A lot of high school and middle school and elementary school bullies, just doing bully stuff. And like this, I didn't. I don't remember reading this poem when I was younger, but this poem would have helped me when I was younger. Like just being alone. Like there are times when I don't want to interact with anyone because I'm sad or because I'm thinking about something. Like, and I'm often full of thoughts. And so like read this and be like and see like when I am full of silence, when I am truly me, like around nobody else but being alone, I can be myself. I can think my own thoughts and not feel judged by the people around me. That really speaks to me, and it feels very like emotional inside, and like I feel seen in a lot of ways by Jack Prelutsky, and I'm sure like a lot of children like go through this, and I think the poem does a really good job of getting at what a lot of children might be feeling, which is like important because like Jack Prelutsky wasn't a child at the time, but yet he still understood what a lot of children might be going through, a lot of youths in terms of like being alone. And he's saying like it's okay to be alone. It's okay to think your own thoughts. It's okay to be yourself while you're alone. You don't have to be running and jumping around all day, building pizzas the size of the sun, or contemplating opening a restaurant of weird ingredients. Like you can be yourself and like not feel judged, feel okay, feel contented. And I really like that message from the poem. But also this poem is surprisingly Buddhist, or like it encourages the youths to meditate, like be in the corner and like sit and think and don't do much else beyond that. Like, of course, it's not advocating children settle down completely, but just like take a moment to pause and reflect on where you're at and like what you're thinking. A good example of this, I settle in my secret place, contented and alone, and think no other thoughts except the thoughts that are my own. Which I really get as like something that might be Buddhist or even like personally self-reflective, and it's an important skill to teach children to look inward and like think and study what they're thinking. It's a big deal in like mental health counseling too, psychology, like to teach people to reflect on what they're thinking and what they're feeling, and to like sort of examine those thoughts and to challenge thoughts that might be problematic, which I think is very helpful, because especially like children and teens, like they may be reaching a point where they're going through a lot of emotions, and they should really reflect on those emotions. Like, no, the whole world isn't out to get you. It may feel like that, but that's not happening right at this moment. And like these are some big skills to teach, and some people might argue that it's too like children are too young to learn these skills, but you're never too like young to prime children on like self-reflection and introspection, which I think is like makes this poem really good. Like it provides like children with like thoughts on like how to go about being alone, and how to think like inside and internally. Those are my thoughts on When I Am Full of Silence by Jack Prelutsky. Yeah, it's a good poem. I recommend you go out there and find it if you can. I will try to find it online and link to it in the comments. But if not, just go to your local library and pick out this book. Or better yet, buy this book, because this is a wonderful book. And it is worth your attention, if only every month or so when you want to find a poem to read. Or perhaps every Thursday on Poetry Thursday when you want to open it up and find a poem to think about. If you have anything to say about this specific poem or Jack Prelutsky, or teaching children to be self-reflective, comment below. I would love to hear from you, and it'd be fun to have a conversation about that kind of thing. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we can get Poetry Thursday out to the masses and get people thinking about wonderful, beautiful poetry that exists in the world. Until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and perhaps somewhat lonely travels. Farewell.